DeVonta Smith and Jaylen Waddle make up one of the most prolific wide receiver duos that college football has ever seen. Both players are great in their own unique ways, but come April 29th, NFL teams will need to make a decision as to who they see as the better prospect. Before I get to who I believe will find more success in the NFL though, I want to begin with a scouting report on each player, starting with DeVonta Smith. Smith's best trait is his route running ability, which he displays here against Mississippi State. He's aligned as the X or weak side receiver on the bottom of the screen, running a fake corner go route, and I want you to pay close attention to Smith's body language while he's selling that corner. His hips are angled outside, he's decelerating, and his eyes are on the sideline, which makes it look like he's getting ready to catch a pass. This and a convincing pump fake from Mac Jones gets Mississippi State safety London Kraft to bite on the corner, allowing Smith to accelerate and create separation. Smith's adjustment to the ball in the air is impressive as well, illustrating his rare reaction time and ability to track the ball while he's still moving at full speed. He's shown time and time again that he possesses the necessary tools to separate against man coverage, whether he's running a deep downfield double move or a quick glance route over the middle like the one you see here. In order to create separation on this route, Smith needs to push South Carolina cornerback J.C. Horn away from the middle of the field with an outside stem, then explode back inside. Watch how Smith leans on Horn to maintain inside leverage, then makes a hard break back inside to create horizontal separation. He demonstrates an advanced understanding of how to win against man coverage. The timing of his breaks is almost always perfect, and he's great at establishing a leverage advantage early in his route. Now, the biggest concern that pops up in most scouting reports and articles about Smith is his size. He's listed at 6'1", 175 and did not weigh in at the Senior Bowl, which makes it difficult to assume that he actually weighs 175 because college measurements are notoriously inaccurate. To provide some context, I put the 2020 top 100 receivers in receiving yards into a graph with the x-axis representing height and the y-axis representing weight. That red dot represents DeVonta Smith, assuming he does in fact weigh 175 pounds. The discrepancy is significant, and it's definitely concerning that success at Smith's size and playstyle is unprecedented. It's also difficult to assume that he's going to gain weight because if it was that easy, he would have by now. That said, it's important to understand how it affected him in college before determining how much it will limit him at the next level. When small receivers align on the outside as the X or the Z, they'll often be pressed by the opposing cornerback at the line of scrimmage to prevent a free release. A receiver's ability to win at the line of scrimmage against press coverage is one of the most important things to consider in college wideouts because NFL defensive backs are much more equipped to survive in press coverage than college DBs. Many analysts who I admire have said that Smith will struggle against press coverage at the next level because of his size, and that's a possibility, but in my opinion there's very little evidence to support that narrative. I watched every route that Smith ran in both 2019 and 2020 against press coverage probably 3 times over, and there weren't nearly enough negative plays to consider it to be a weakness. In fact, I thought Smith was overwhelmingly dominant against press despite his size. His release package is as diverse as they come. DBs almost never know what to expect, and his ability to dodge jams at the line of scrimmage makes pressing him a dangerous game. Back in 2019, during Alabama's game against LSU, Smith was pressed on nearly every play when he aligned outside, most often by the 2022 number 1 cornerback prospect Derek Stingley Jr. And I want you to take a look at the first play of the game. After the snap, Stingley goes for a two-handed jam at the line of scrimmage, which Smith counters with a swipe and gets a clean release, but the thing that really stands out to me here is how Smith turned his shoulders inside to avoid the jam. This is a technique often used by edge defenders when they're rushing the passer to reduce the surface that an offensive lineman has for his punch, and it serves the same purpose here. By turning his shoulders inside, Smith made himself small, limiting the target surface of Stingley's punch, which allowed him to separate vertically. I'm not arguing that Smith's size isn't a concern, it is, but the claim that Smith struggled against press coverage in college is just flat out false. He might struggle to fight through contact on occasion, but that doesn't concern me all that much because his ability to dodge jams at the line of scrimmage is so impressive. Size isn't an issue when Smith goes up against press coverage for the same reason that Panthers edge defender Brian Burns' size isn't an issue when he goes up against much bigger tackles. Like Smith, Burns is undersized for his position, but he's known for dodging punches from opposing tackles the same way Smith can dodge jams from opposing defensive backs. Smith's size will limit him as a run blocker, and he's much better suited as a strong side Z or slot receiver than a weak side X, which is a bit concerning, but I don't think he's too small to have a phenomenal career in the NFL. Smith has the edge over Waddle in just about every category having to do with college production, but I don't think that production carries much weight when it comes to scouting. Before Waddle was injured in Week 7, he had more yards than Smith with the same amount of touchdowns on less routes and less targets. The fact that Smith's production and efficiency went through the roof after Waddle's injury speaks to his versatility because he filled the role of a big play receiver when Waddle went out, but at the same time, it puts the effect of Waddle's injury into perspective. If Waddle hadn't been hurt, Smith wouldn't have hit 1,800 yards, he wouldn't have scored 23 touchdowns, and he wouldn't have won the Heisman. That's not to say that Smith didn't deserve the Heisman, but Waddle's injury boosted his production astronomically. Waddle's best quality is his speed, and it's not just his downhill breakaway speed that's so impressive. It's his speed combined with his proficiency as a route runner that separates him from the other speed-oriented receivers who go through the draft. There's a couple of plays that illustrate exactly what I'm talking about from last season against Texas A&M, starting with this one from the first quarter. Waddle is running an over route from a stack formation at the bottom of the screen, which aims to isolate him against an out-leveraged, slower cornerback. Even though he got open over the middle, Waddle didn't get the ball because Mac Jones instead opted to throw up a jump ball to John Mechie. Now, take a look at this play from just a few minutes later in the game. Alabama shows a similar stack formation after Waddle's pre-snap motion, and the stem of this route looks exactly like the last one, but this time, instead of just sprinting across the field on an over route, Waddle slams on the brakes in the middle of the field and explodes back toward the sideline. This is known as a blaze out route and is one of the most difficult routes for receivers to run because it requires them to stop at full speed and accelerate in the opposite direction. It's not often that you see a guy run a blaze out route to this degree of effectiveness, and it's almost unheard of for that same guy to run a 4.3, but that's Jaylen Waddle. He's so fast that on multiple occasions in 2019 and 2020, Waddle created a significant amount of vertical separation and was still forced to make a contested catch because the ball was underthrown. He's a dynamic weapon who can beat you with a great route or speed and can even high point the ball when he needs to. His nuanced approach to route running shows up over and over again on tape, even on a simple over route like the one you see here. Waddle is again lined up in the slot, and the great thing about this route is how he varies his speed. When he's closing the gap between himself and Aggie safety Devin Morris, Waddle runs relatively slowly. This keeps Morris flat-footed so that when Waddle turns on the jets, Morris has no chance of catching up. He possesses an insane burst of speed, which makes him lethal with the ball in his hands, whether he's just caught a pass or he's returning a kick. The Tyreek Hill comparison has never made more sense, not because of Waddle's top speed necessarily, but because of the combination of that speed with elite acceleration, change of direction, and route running ability. Waddle has experience playing both in the slot and on the outside as the Z, and I believe he can fit into either of those positions at the next level. He doesn't get pressed nearly as much as DeVonta Smith when he aligns outside because DBs are so scared of that speed, so even if his releases aren't quite as diverse or as effective as Smith's, it isn't much of a concern because the risk outweighs the reward when it comes to pressing Waddle. He also has shown time and time again that he can take the beating that slot receivers take when running over the middle. He can make tough catches in traffic through contact and can be a matchup nightmare for defenses who try to cover him with a safety in the slot. So if it's my decision, I'm taking Waddle over Smith. I'm confident that Smith's size will force him to play as the strong side Z or in the slot in the NFL after playing mostly the X in college. This lack of positional versatility, combined with Waddle's significant speed advantage, is enough for me to give Waddle the edge over Smith. That said, I still think DeVonta Smith is a great player, and I still have him graded as a top 15 prospect in the draft. I absolutely love both prospects regardless of who I have graded higher, and I believe that both have the tools to find success in the NFL. But that's going to do it for today's video. Next up is a video on former Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and what the Miami Dolphins should do with that number 3 overall pick. You can follow me on Twitter for updates on future videos, which will be in the description, but that's all I've got for now. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.